Sometimes experiences open and transform you in ways you never expected. Experiences that drive deep, positive change in your life. This is the story of the challenges I faced when I hiked the Lost Coast Trail and how those challenges healed me profoundly. And the art I made as a result. And if you stick around to the end, I actually have a giveaway, which you might want to know about. The Lost Coast Trail covers 25 miles of Northern California's rugged coastline, from Atoll Beach in the north to Black Sands Beach in the south. It's treacherous with unpredictable seas and 3 zones that are impassable at high tide. The hardest part of hiking the Lost Coast Trail was not what I thought it would be. In all the months of questioning whether I was strong enough or wondering if I was too old, I thought the hardest thing was going to be carrying that backpack over that tough terrain in that wild and remote place. But I was wrong. So here I am at the start of the Lost Coast Trail. I am beyond excited. I'm also apprehensive. I'm hoping I don't see a bear. I hope I can do this. I really hope my legs will carry me all the 25 miles south, and I guess the next 4 days will tell. While I slogged through the sand on that first day, I was entranced by my surroundings. The textures of the hills, the ochre of the long grass, the leftover remainders rusting in the grass from previous human presence, the pops of colour that were the wildflowers, and the ocean and the different textures of the sand. It was magnificent. I was itching to start drawing. So we just finished our first day of hiking on the Lost Coast Trail. We're here at Punta Gordo Lighthouse, and this is just the most beautiful, wild, remote place. Where we are, there is an old lighthouse and a whole lot of elephant seals on the beach, which is pretty amazing. This is the sketch I did on the first day at Punta Gordo Lighthouse. I was super excited and interested in how the white rectangular forms of the lighthouse acted as a negative space against the ochre and browns of the grass and the hills. I did this very quickly with ink and wash, didn't have a lot of time to draw on that first day. You can see here how the paper started to peel. Also, it started to bleed through onto the other page. I realized very quickly that this paper wasn't sized, and because it's not sized, I knew I wasn't going to be able to use water media on it. So that one factor had a huge impact on what I actually used this book for, which then had implications later for my process back in the studio. The first day went really well. Hiking on the sand was hard, but I did manage the 3.5 miles to Punta Gorda Lighthouse relatively easily. The night, however, was a different matter. Good morning. Slept really badly last night. The wind was insane. Tent was flapping all night till about maybe 3 or 4. Also had a lot of anxiety. Every sound, I was convinced it was a bear outside. I'm excited for the day's hiking, but man, I really could have done with a bit more sleep. Oh wow. The sun's rising and the moon's still up. What a beautiful, beautiful morning. Even though neither of us slept very well, the beauty of the place acted on us. I was actually here. I was doing it. I was facing my fears and pushing myself. The pink of the dawn surrounded us with the still ocean. and I felt the stress of the night just slipping away. On the Lost Coast, you match your pace to the rhythms of the tide. There are areas that you just can't cross once the tide gets above a certain level, and so you just have to slow down and take the place in and spend time waiting for the tide to turn. We hiked from the Punta Gorda lighthouse all the way to Kinsey Creek. Was a fabulous hike. Lots of varied terrain, including kind of dinosaur egg rocks, black sand, and then hiking through fields of wildflowers, which was just absolutely gorgeous. We found a very sheltered campsite at Kinsey Creek, tucked up among the trees, so we knew that we would have a much more sheltered night, and then spent the afternoon on the beach, just absorbing the quiet of that beautiful place. It was really lovely, just doing some painting, just really enjoying having a whole spectacular beach to ourselves. It's just glorious. So I originally bought this little sketchbook with me to act as a journal and to do a very quick watercolour sketch each day, and that plan was kind of thwarted on the first day. So on day 2, I very quickly shifted to using other media. I did this very quick continuous line drawing, and this is of the headland with the burnt trees up on the hill, looking out across the ocean and the beach. And the thing that I was really excited about as I was looking were all the textures of the rocks and the lines that were made and the potential for mark making. So I decided to dive in further and explore that. I just very quickly started capturing shapes and textures and using marks to just capture the sense of the place around me. And that resulted in these very abstract little drawings, which proved to be hugely influential in my practice when I was back in the studio. Far, far from the noise and the bustle of everyday life, exploring textures and colours and forms, I felt at one with myself. But the night was a different matter. You know, I'm definitely a fully paid up member of Overthinkers Anonymous, and I can doom spiral with the best of them, and neither of those things helped me at all when trying to sleep on the Lost Coast Trail. I slept better last night, but definitely still a bit anxious about the bears. So morning of day 3, just heading out pretty early. As you can probably see behind me, it's pretty foggy, but absolutely beautiful. Just walking along the side of the ocean, and it's pretty easy hiking for the first chunk today. We've got about 6 miles to do, and hoping to end up at Shipman Cove for the night tonight. We saw a sea otter on the beach, which was amazing, and a ton of bear prints. Have not seen a bear, but kind of thankful we've avoided bears so far, and fingers crossed that continues. But surprisingly, on this 3rd day, in spite of seeing bear prints, I felt my anxiety loosen. Just being in this magical place, I felt something deep inside me unknot. I felt myself connecting not just with that wild place, but also with myself. I'd come into this hike slowly recovering from the exhaustion of burnout. I felt lost to myself, numb, exhausted and withdrawn, my creativity at an all-time ebb. And maybe in all this walking, I was walking my way back to myself. Yes, what I was doing was hard, both physically and mentally, but I was actually doing it. I felt my anxiety melt away, and I felt strong and sure. It changed me deeply. This impacted not only my anxiety, it also gave a massive boost to my creativity. As we waited for the tides each day, I drew and painted and sketched. We planned to spend that night at Shipman Creek, but the campsite seemed very exposed to the ocean, and because the tides were still okay, we decided to press on.
Stayed at a really great place called Buck Creek. We were up off the beach. Beautiful, lush vegetation and a lovely, lovely creek with a waterfall. It's just so beautiful. We spent the afternoon on the beach drawing.
Again, I leaned into the mark making and capturing textures and gestures. So the rocks had this most amazing folded pattern in them, and then there was the patterns of the vegetation. And on the beach there was this incredibly sculptural tree which was making very interesting shapes. This was just capturing those, you know, a sense of the creek and the vegetation. This one's a little bit more literal, so just those rounded forms of the rocks on the beach. It was a very rocky beach. Getting more abstract, exploring more abstract forms inspired by the shapes and the textures I was seeing around me. So I slept like a log last night. I was so comfy and so cozy. I just slept, which is amazing. Didn't wake up once. There's something about being in this place that just works on you.
So I think we're on day 3 or day 4. I kind of lost track. We're currently this morning going through the last tidal zone of the trip. It's so spectacular, and it was extremely foggy overnight. The tent got really, really wet and we had some pretty bad condensation happening. The sky is just the most amazing pale pink colour, just glowing, and we've just got to slog through a sea of pebbles to our next campsite, where we'll have some breakfast and then make a decision about whether we're going to stay there overnight and just hike out the last couple of miles tomorrow morning, or whether we're going to hike straight out. This is our 3rd day of fog, and honestly it was so thick this morning. It was a little demoralizing. Still spectacularly beautiful in a kind of haunted Gothic sort of way, and certainly typical weather for the Pacific Northwest in summer. You know, it's been amazing these past few days with the ocean as a kind of constant companion and background, and just filled with awe at the beauty of it and the power. Looking on the shore, all these massive logs that are just tossed up here as if it were nothing.
Walking alongside that each day really brought home to me how small I was in the scheme of things, and how I was part of a much, much greater whole.
Anyway, we're coming up to Horse Mountain Creek, which is our potential last camping ground. But we have seen the end, and it's hard to unsee it and stay in the present once you've seen it. So I am just trying to soak in as much as I can of this wild, amazing place. Just enjoy this day on the trail. We just had a quick break and some snacks and decided to just hike out the last few miles and get it done. But it's been the most amazing adventure. And as you start to reach the end, the world that has been held at bay for the last 4 days while we've been immersed in this amazing, beautiful place, the world starts to come rushing back in and you start to think about your bed and the studio and the laundry list of things in life that seem so important when you're in them and so insignificant when you're out here, just being present in this place.
And so I did it. I actually completed the Lost Coast Trail. I went into this hike full of doubt and uncertainty and still feeling very burned out. But the trail worked its magic on me, and I left it feeling strong and sure, and knowing that even if I question myself and doubt myself, I have the strength and the resilience I need to chase my dreams. Creative inspiration of making work in that wild place carried back into the studio. I began with a series of charcoal drawings that then evolved into some small paintings and then into 3 larger works. And if you want to see these works in more detail or purchase one of them, you can find a link to my website below, clairebondart.com. I think one of the things that excited me the most about this trip was how much drawing I did while I was out there and how I was able to integrate that into the trip. And then the result of then being able to bring those back and actually make works from them. You can see the development of this from the sketch that I did on the beach at Buck Creek, through the charcoal drawing that emerged from that sketch, and then here it is in painted mixed media. Actually, it's paint and some oil pastel and some chalk pastel, and just the color of the dawn and the white of the fog and the deep blue of the ocean, the charcoal colored and browns of the sand, and then the bright pops of color that were the wildflowers that were blooming at the time. And most recently, these works have started to move back towards my roots in sculpture and installation, and I am really excited to see what evolves from there. The daring that I am finding to rediscover my creative strengths is due in large part to that sense of strength and self-assurance that I found on the Lost Coast Trail. It continues with me still, so that even when I inevitably doubt myself, which I still do, that memory is something tangible that I lean back upon. It changed me profoundly. So thank you for joining me on this journey. I'm super excited to share the work that continues to come out of that experience in future videos, as well as some of the other journeys that I took over the summer. And I have a special offer for everyone who is on my mailing list by the end of October. All of those people will be in the running to win one of the 9 small paintings that I made while I was on the Lost Coast Trail. Each of those paintings was made in a very specific location, and each of them used water that was filtered from that location. So in owning one of those paintings, you will get to have a very small part of that magical place to call your own. Now, if you're not on my mailing list already, I got you too. I will include the link down below to sign up. So make sure you do that before October 31st, and good luck. And if you want to know how I prepared for the Lost Coast Trail and how that preparation completely transformed my life, taking me from my corporate role back to my roots as an artist, then I'll link that video down below as well. In the meantime, please like and subscribe. I really welcome the support, and thanks to everybody who subscribed from my last video. Really appreciate you being here with me. Take care, and until next time, bye for now.